fellas, welcome to the channel. I'm Chris Kiefer, and today we have something really cool. I am out here in Lucerne Valley, California for the last AMA National Hare N Hound presented by 100's MC. A little bit of backstory here. So I grew up racing desert since I was, I don't know, 9 years old. Did that until I was a teenager. And then Dad put me in motocross and just kept trucking that way. But nonetheless, good friends with Kurt Caselli growing up, and was out in the desert quite a bit, and I like to come out here from time to time and do some of these races. So I'm here racing, but I'm factory for a day. You couldn't get more poser than this, but I am going to be the slowest factory guy here this weekend, and I'm excited. But I got my guy Kevin Titus. He is the mechanic for Dalton, Shirey, and Austin Walton. He does double duty on this stuff, and he prepped this bike up for me. This is Dalton's actual National Hare N Hound race bike. I'm just going to hop on this thing. May adjust some suspension a little bit, but nonetheless, I'm just going to hop on it and go race. Wish me luck, but nonetheless, I brought Kevin here to talk about the bike and what it's like to build a AMA National Hare N Hound machine. So Kevin, give us a little bit about the bike, what you do, and maybe just start with, let's just start with the engine. So we talked about before this, there's a lot of things we can't talk about because it is a factory machine. But basically what we can talk about is transmission and ECU.
Yeah, so as far as the transmission, it's a stock 6-speed transmission. We don't do much other than that. The way we build these engines, and shout out to our engine builders, they do one hell of a job building these engines for reliability. We just go for reliability. Nothing is modified to an extent to where we can have a mechanical failure, and we just do what we need to do to make sure that the bike can get across the finish line after doing a 3-hour-long 80-mile Hare N Hound.
Probably 4 hours for me.
Yeah.
You gotta know that.
Yeah, so as far as engine goes, everything is stock. We do some basic, very, very basic head work. The heart and soul of this engine is the ECU. The ECU that we tune with our engine builders, they make these things beasts. There's a lot that you can get out of stock engines with just an ECU.
So this is just a stock ECU tuned internally?
Correct.
At Husqvarna?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So they're not using a Vortex or a Gant, they're actually using their own software, their own system on their stock ECU.
That's our bread and butter.
Yeah. Okay, so Dalton, Dalton told me he's 190 pounds. I did not know he was that heavy.
Yeah.
I thought he was all DNR, but there's some meat behind this guy.
He's a big dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's big.
So tell us about his suspension setup. So what's he like?
Well, actually, that's what we've been trying to figure out, and we've been making a lot of positive suspension changes. Shout out to our suspension guy, Marshall Stewart. He's behind us right now working with them. We've been really busting our butts to dial in what Dalton likes, because he's kind of been...
Does he know what he likes?
That's the thing. He kind of just goes off of what the track is, and it feels good. Yeah. Whereas like a rider like Austin, he's very firm, and he's like, this is what I want, this is what I feel, and we can work off of that. And now that Dalton's been working with us, and he's had a lot more attention put on him, he's starting to figure out what he likes, and it helps us because he can give us better feedback. And before it's been, yeah, it feels good, well, yeah, we'll just keep it at that type stuff, but now he's very firm on what he wants.
Okay, so is Austin stiffer than Dalton?
Yes.
Okay.
Way stiffer.
On springs as well?
No, they're both on 5.4 springs. Dalton is on a 5.2 rear spring, and Austin is on a 5. I think he's on a 5.3 or 5.4.
Okay, so not that much.
No. Okay. It caps out at 5.4.
So pro components on here, WP, you got cone valve, and you got tracks. Linkage is stock?
Linkage is stock.
Okay, and then a little interesting fact that I found out before we started this video, they're on extra clamps and they're on 24mm offsets. Stock is 22mm, so obviously when you're going 100 mile an hour across a valley here in Southern California, you want stability. So we're dropping this fork down almost flush, and you got 24mm offsets, and that'll get you some stability going across the desert. Another important thing that I don't know much about is this Precision Racing Products dampener. So tell us a little about that.
So that is something that we have just started to use in the last couple of years. It is one of the most important pieces on this bike, because just like you stated, when you're going that fast on these wide open roads, one wrong move, one bump, anything, these handlebars are knifing and they are off the bike.
Don't want that.
We don't want that at all.
We don't want that.
So these precision concept dampeners are very important stop any massive initial hit, and yeah, they do some wonderful things for our riders.
All right, Aiden, come in here. So if you can focus in on this, you see this knob. This is where I'll be turning this knob. You know, obviously the increase, you want a little bit more of a harder like hit, so we can pan back a little bit, Aiden. And as this thing turns, it gets harder at the end or the middle part of the corner. So when you hit something, it actually dampens that feel and it doesn't deflect as much. So if you're going across a valley wide open, you got some cross grain or some rocks, you want to crank this thing up. And then maybe if you're in a little bit of a tighter area and you want a little bit of a looser feel, you just back that thing off a little bit, and then yeah, you'll have a little bit of a looser feel, which is quite nice. So I haven't had much experience with that, so I'll be playing with that in the race, so that is nice. I grew up only racing, so most of my life I'm 125. So haven't been on a big bike that much. Last time I rode was Ricky Brabeck's factory Honda. So this is only my second time I've been on a big bike out in the desert, so I'm excited and see how much this thing gives me, but glad to have a little bit of safety factor right up here in the front end. Okay, next thing, tires, wheels, what we got?
So for wheel setup, we're running the Excel A60 rim. They handle hard hits a lot better than the stock, just soft rims that Takasaki makes. Tire setup, we're running an AT82 front and rear. On the rear, we are running the scoop direction so that we can get a little more grab out of the sand and it's not as choppy.
So yeah, we're on Moose Tube. So basically, if you guys aren't familiar, you moto guys like me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you know more about than me, it's equivalent to maybe 15 PSI?
Correct. Brand new, they are equivalent to 15. As you get one race on them, they start to drop pretty good, and a lot of riders like that softer feel because the tires can mold on the ground better. If you're running, say, an MX14, you want to have a brand new bib in that thing every race because of how much sidewall that 14 has. But on these tires, a used bib gives you the best feel possible.
So we drilled in?
No, not drilled.
Okay.
It's just almost, we call it a break-in period. So
they are broken in.
Yeah, all these bibs are broken in. That way you just have a little more flex and the tire can do what its job is intended for.
Okay. I'm going to come around here and I want to talk about these brakes. So maybe Kevin talk about specifically stock front brake, but
yes, sir.
You're looking at this factory rear caliper.
Yeah, so that's a factory rear caliper along with a factory master, and they there's not too much different from stock to factory on the caliper. They're pretty much identical, just some weight savings, and obviously we have the option to change the piston size and stuff like that whenever they want. We're running a solid rotor.
So that's going to give me instant like brake touch, right?
Yeah, it's
Army's still out here in the desert. Love to see it. So yeah, solid rotors. Usually guys with GNCCs, mud, have solid rotors because you want that instant grab. I didn't know if you guys are worried about heat with solid rotors.
That's the thing that I'm still trying to figure out on the whole solid rotor deal, because we are open desert.
Yeah.
We want more of a slotted rotor to keep those rotors cool. As far from what I have been told, it's a reliability thing. We don't want any rocks or anything to be caught in the rotors and potentially have the brake pads get broke or something. Not my first go-to pick for open desert racing. Okay. I would definitely be running a slotted rotor on that. But
hey, we're going to give it a shot. See what it's like.
As far as what we're running and what the team runs, we run a solid rotor.
Okay, IMS Big Tank's a must out here. We're going 40-mile loops, 40 to 45-mile loops. Obviously, almost a 100-mile race. So you said 12.1 liter?
Yeah. So obviously, the longer you use these tanks, they're going to expand every time you use them. So every time we measure them out, they're going to be a little bit bigger than. Wait,
you're all right. You're all right.
Wait, just one more. We'll measure these tanks after every race, and they'll go from 12 to 12.1, 12 to 12.3 at the maximum, and that's when we'll kind of change them out because they'll start expanding too much. But yeah, 12 liters, 12.3 liters, and we're doing roughly 3 gallons. And yeah, so after they do their first 40 mile loop on this race, they'll get a full dump can of 12 liters, and then they're off for their second 40-mile loop.
Obviously, you guys are interested in off-road racing. That's why you're here. So a dump can, it's pretty impressive. Like, pick this thing up, you slam this dump can in, and then
yeah. So the riders will come in, they'll just yank this off, and you can push down on this, and it's just an instant dump of fuel. And then we'll put another cap back on if they were doing, say, an alternate pit, or they had to fuel a second time, which is very often that they do have to fuel a second time. But since they're only fueling once, they can pull this off and just throw it. They don't have to worry about it.
Obviously, things that you need here, you need some comfort, you need reliability, also pro taper handlebars. He just told me SX race band. Dalton likes that, which that's what I run usually when I was on pro taper, SX race on my Yamahas and everything else that we have for test bikes. We have soft half waffle grips. Husqvarna makes their own hand guards, which is quite nice. The Shirey's, is this Shirey?
Yes, sir.
Shirey spray guard with, you got some kind of grip tape in here. What is that all about?
So grip tape, most riders do want grip tape. This is kind of my own template that I made myself.
So you made all this yourself?
Correct. I have my own templates that I've cut and kind of designed over the past year of working with multiple different riders of what they like. And yeah, it's just 3M. 3M is a very good company for grip tape.
1451 final drive?
Yes.
O-ring chain?
Yes.
Do we ever weigh this thing full of fuel? Do we know what it weighs?
No, that's actually a very good thing that we should do.
I feel like it'd be interesting to weigh a stock FX450, and all of a sudden we're beefing this thing up a little bit to make it reliable and go across the desert in a fast manner. But I would say, I mean, you got to almost have an extra 10 to 15 pounds.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of weight that gets added onto these bikes to make them a desert raceable bike.
Yeah. Anything done with the throttle? I know it's a very smooth pull, easy to pull.
So there's just tricks of the trades that I have learned as far as the way you grease things, the way you deburr the handlebar after cutting, the way you run the throttle cables. There's nothing crazy to it. There's no crazy modifications or anything. It's just the way it all is.
Obviously, Dutch Racing seat. Dalton runs a seat hump. I told my guy here, Kevin, I don't need that in my asshole for 80 miles, so I'm good there, so no need to have that. I'll be planning just fine. I'm not going to be going as fast as these two gentlemen here in the pits with me. But hey, man, I'm excited to ride this thing. Kevin, I appreciate you doing all the work.
Yes, sir.
We're going to have more actually involved with the whole National Hare N Hound theme this weekend over on racerxonline.com, as well as keeperinctesting.com, so you can go check out those channels. If you have any questions that maybe you guys want to ask me, Chris at keeperinctesting.com. It's a virtual door to open up, and you guys can ask anything you want. So stay tuned. More from Lucerne Valley, California.